Hello, and welcome to Rocket Fuel, your daily update of everything that's happening in the Rocket Pool community. My name is Wack. Today is April 8th, and today's episode is going to talk about price action. Sadly, there's been a lot going on with that. We're also going to be talking about rETH, some of the things that's happening with that, latest GMC round. We're going to be talking about a bunch of Ethereum things as well. So let's get started.
10, 9, ignition sequence start, 6.
Okay, so the place to start is with RPL price action. Sadly, it's been horrible, absolutely disastrous. Ramana was really busy on Sunday and Monday. This whole trade war thing was just really bad. For crypto prices, everything was down bad. And Ramana was updating the low for RPL. So here it was $3.41, $3.27, and just a little while later it went down to $3.14, let's just say, just less than $3.15. So the price action for RPL was absolutely horrible. It wasn't just RPL, of course, that this was was going through this price action. If we have a look at ETH, here it hit new lows against BTC on the ratio, 0.0199. It actually went lower than that as well, which is just horrific, absolutely horrendous. If we have a look over here, you can see that the price for ETH went down to, RPL went down to $3.14, just under $3.15. And then on the ratio, we also got a new low a few days ago on the 4th, and that was 0.0021099918. So RPL hitting lows on both of those, which of course is not nice. ETH was suffering as well. Like I said, it was going down against BTC, and it hit new lows, and the market as a wide was just horrific. So, crypto was going down, and as the stock markets were opening on Monday across, Asia and then into Europe, everything was just down. Here you can see, Germany down 7%, UK down 5%, France down 6%, and other countries just down bad as well. So it was really bad, really bad. And, a lot of people, I think, got really hurt by this. Of course, this is macro bleeding into crypto, and it's just the market got hit really hard. So, it was it was really tough. It was really tough. So I'm sorry for those of you who have had a really tough weekend, especially those of you who might have gotten liquidated or just are in a bad spot because of this price action. It's been horrible for everyone. I think some people in the Rocket Pool community have been kind of consoling each other and kind of trying to reassure each other, but this was really bad. If we have a look over here, a whale got liquidated for 67,570 ETH. So that was worth $106 million. That was liquidation took place. So that hit ETH quite hard as well. And one thing to realize, one thing about this person is, from what I understand, this person had a position open from 2018 and now got liquidated. As far as I understand, they had this position supposedly open for a long time, and they got liquidated after many years. And the sad thing for them is that with some other positions, I guess some people got liquidated and the price kind of bounced back after that. So the RPL price, like we said, was down to $3.14. It actually went up back to $4, I want to say, or $3.80 or something. We can actually have a look. There's no need for me to guess. We'll just have a look at Binance. Binance here shows that RPL went back up. So after the low, the price actually went back up to $3.82. So there was a little bit of a bounce, and the bounce came from a fake story that was spread in the news saying that Trump was going to pause the tariffs, and there was a bounce because of that. But then that was a fake story, and then it kind of that got eaten away. And after that, we did have another couple of little bounces, but nothing sustained, and the price has since bled down quite a lot. Of course, Now, if we look at ETH as well, it's currently at $1,479. It, just a little while ago, it went down to $1,454. It looks like people are expecting this to hit new lows. ETH went down to $1,411.01. So there was some really big hits taking place for ETH there, and yeah, it's not looking good. Sadly, Ben Cowen, who has been calling for ETH to go home, and home he means in this logarithmic regression trend line. He kind of mapped this out a few years ago and saying that ETH needs to go back to this area, and ETH went back into that around 1500, I think it was when it went in there. So of course it went a little bit below that. There's a chance that it'll hit the lower level of the logarithmic regression trend line, and I think that amount is currently at somewhere like $1,100 or $1,200. So it's not quite as low as it was when he was calling for it to hit a few years ago. At that point it was around $400 mark or $500 mark, but ETH kind of held on until now in terms of this in this regression band, and now it looks like it's gone down. So yeah, it's been a really painful week for everyone in crypto, in trad markets. The stock markets got hit really hard at the end of last week on Thursday and Friday, and then yesterday as well. It opened really badly, really low, and then it recovered some of that during the day. But yeah, it's been a really tough weekend. So the price action is horrible. There's not really too much to say about it. This is pretty much direct consequence of the financial uncertainty that's been introduced to the global markets because of Donald Trump's policies towards international trade. And there really isn't much more to say about that, in all honesty. It's just a really bad situation. But the one thing that's really interesting is that wick that I just pointed out a minute ago, with the price kind of going up. If you have a look on the ETH chart as well, you can see it right there. So the price went down to 411, and then it wicked all the way up to 1,639. So it was quite a big wick up. I think this just shows you, and this happened across all assets, like the stock market literally had trillions of dollars added to it and then taken away within a matter of minutes because of this. I think it just tells you that there's a lot of money that's sitting on the sidelines right now, and as soon as there's any good news, I think they're going to pile back in and hope that that would be the bottom. That is a dangerous game people are playing here, trying to trade these moves, because it all just comes down to the whims of Donald Trump and what he wants, or what he thinks is going to happen, or what he wants to happen, and that is really, really risky, kind of scary. I don't know how I would feel trying to trade in and out of those positions. So I'm just holding my crypto and I'm gonna ride it out. Okay, let's talk about rETH a little bit, because there's been some stuff happening with rETH as well. And with the way that things have been moving around, rETH has not been immune to this. A whole lot of people have been exiting their rETH bags, selling them into stable coins, and my browser's being really slow for some reason. Selling them into stable coins, just trying to wait out the uncertainty, maybe trying to think that they can find catch a falling knife. And with that said, it's really dangerous game that those people are playing as well. Let me just come back when these pages load. Okay, so here we are back. Sorry about that. So yeah, you can see the discount for rETH is growing on the secondary market. At the moment, yesterday it was at 0.723%, which is nearly a fairly sizable percentage. But this is when people would actually start kind of looping to take advantage of that. It has closed a little bit since then, so it's gone down to 0.588. So I don't know if that's because people have exited, or if that's because people have waited to take advantage of this arb, or if it's because people have used leverage to go long in anticipation that it will close. But that's where the discount's standing right now. So even with people leaving, we have deposits coming into the deposit pool. So we had a 1,000 ETH deposit. The queue is actually looking not too bad right now. I think the person at the front of the queue, they're waiting for around 16 or 17 days, and the actual length of the queue has gone down a little bit as well, down to 266 validators. So it looks like the number of validators entering has slowed down a little bit, but the length that you would have to wait isn't too bad right now. And then other people kind of moving around their rETH. So these Gnome Labs, they've been doing a bunch of things with their rETH recently, and moving it around, like providing liquidity. And then also I think they were selling some. I wasn't sure exactly what was going on here. They actually put it into Aave, sorry, so they put it into Aave. So yeah, but then if we have a look, just before I started recording, a little while ago, there was this sovereign.eth sold 1,000 ETH of rETH into stables. So it looks like, some people might be trying to catch those knives. They're exiting their crypto into stables, and maybe they'll buy back at lower prices. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens when the market starts to turn around, what they're going to be doing. Okay, so we had the latest GMC round end, and this was actually really interesting because there was just one grant application that came through in the whole round. There were no bounties and there were no retroactive awards, and the one grant came from message maxing for Rocket Pool video content. This is from Between the Lines. So these people are asking for $12,040, something along that, maximum, or $12,900, somewhere around that, as the maximum. And they're going to make they want to make videos and stuff like that. So that decision is now with the GMC. Like I said, the round has ended, so now we are up to the next round, and this will be round 24, and we currently have no applications for round 24 as far as I can tell. So yeah, so far we have nothing for that. Okay, I talked about the bridge stuff last week quite a few times, and this was something that was being pushed by Alpha Growth from Spartan at Alpha Growth, about trying to get some clarity on the Ronin bridge and what's going to happen with that, whether there's going to be a fee, whether there's going to be any ownership. And this is kind of where we stand right now. So Schifrin said, I'd prefer to see the team take ownership of the contract to help minimize legal exposure. If they are not willing to do that, I'd like to hear a clear explanation of their concerns. I'm uneasy with the current trajectory where members feel pressure to commit, only to later regret it once they better understand legal implications. I witnessed this happen during the last GMC election. And Langas actually replied by saying, that's fair, so I'm going to try to outline our concerns. He says, first, I want to define what take ownership means. From the discussion so far, it means having the ability to whitelist addresses as minters to support adding, removing of bridge operators. If there are different expectations, then let me know. As far as I know, CCIP's ability to implement a dynamic fee structure is not contingent on us owning the token, but I will check. Then he says, our concerns are threefold. The first is trust. We have dedicated ourselves to eliminating areas of trust by giving the team the ability to whitelist minters. The PDAO would be giving the team the ability to infinitely or close to mint rETH. We would obviously implement safeguards, but these would have to be high enough to meet market demand and low enough to prevent abuse. Then there's risk. By taking the responsibility, the team takes on the amount of risk. They would obviously hold high standard, but those keys ever got exploited in some way, then it would be potentially game over for Rocket Pool and rETH. And there's legal as well. So he says we face the same risks as the DAO. By holding unilateral control over elements of the protocol, we open ourselves up to legal risk. He says this is why I would prefer not to retain ownership of the token contract. If it comes down to a trade-off, future optionality versus large risk exposure, I don't like losing optionality, but to me, we have to make the trade-off. And then Doofus says those are legitimate concerns. And he says, I don't know enough about this, but there's ways to only control certain aspects. He said, I'm sure Spartan thought we could control the fee by owning the contract, but if we burn the contract, Chainlink would set the fee. Maybe just control the fee, but nothing else. Spartan says that's correct. The DAO can burn the admin rights for burning and minting rETH while still earning fees on bridging. This option 2 in the forum voting. However, if the DAO does not own the contract address and rely on Chainlink to collect fees and distribute fees, we're essentially trusting them to act in the DAO's best interest. By owning the contract address, Rocket Pool DAO gains the ability to vote on which bridges can mint and burn rETH. This is important because it allows the DAO to ensure that its interests are protected and can adapt to changing circumstances. For example, if Chainlink were to decide not to pay the DAO its fees, the DAO could vote to revoke their right to burn and mint the rETH and instead partner with an alternative bridge that aligns with the DAO's interests. And Langa says, I would prefer not to retain ownership, but we are open to joining a group with community members to own the contract. This would alleviate most of the concerns and avoid the trade-off. This is a similar scenario to the PDAO Security Council, which I should post about in the governance. So perhaps it's the same people in the Security Council can be in this group. Essentially, if we can form that group of elected volunteers, then retaining ownership is possible, though I am aware that DAO members have similar legal concerns. If we can't put the group together, then we don't have much choice but to renounce ownership. And Doofa says that makes sense to me. Summer says I'm late catching up and then talking about the different tiers of options and stuff. So there was a nice little comment there if you can read them. And then Val had some thoughts as well and a little bit of back and forth. So you can read all that stuff. But this is an ongoing discussion and hopefully we will have a resolution to it soon. Okay, a little governance update here is that we have a proposal 3 that is pending, and this will go live in 4 days' time. And this is the recurring payment to the GMC. So, like the current vote that is happening on chain voting, which is a recurring payment to the IMC, this will be to the GMC, and it goes live in 4 days, which is pretty cool. The IMC payment will end in 1 day for phase 2. So then that will be done in very soon, which is really, really exciting. I guess maybe tomorrow's episode I could cover that, but it might be on Thursday's episode that we cover that. But yeah, then the GMC vote goes live as well, and that of course will run in the same 2 phases, with the first one being that, delegators can vote, people who've had votes delegated to them can vote, and in the second phase, people can override their delegates if they want. I don't think there's been a single override in phase 2 just yet, but it looks like it's all going to pass quite smoothly, so that's pretty cool. Okay, some staking news here. We have an update from Bisu, and they have a new version which is 25.4.0, and this is not Pectrum in at the release, so that next release likely will be. And then this is an optional update. Please note that upcoming breaking changes. This release is mostly suitability improvements ahead of the hard fork, so they're just clearing up some stuff ahead of the hard fork, so you can update to that if you want and if you're using Bisu. Okay, there were some interesting discussions happening in Ethereum land that I thought I should cover with you all. The first one here is Anders talking about issuance. So we've talked about issuance on Rocket Fuel a bunch of times and how that might impact Rocket Pool and staking and liquid staking. If you go to zero rewards, it's going to kick off home stakers from the network. And then Anders says lower issuance benefits Ethereum in 2 ways. One, it increases welfare by reducing the cost users are compelled to incur. And 2, it strengthens resilience and trustlessness. It says current CR research and new consensus requirements tip the balance further in favor of these benefits. And then Anders goes on to say, we know that validated incentives will need to be adapted for single slot finality. We know that fossil will alter the role of stakers. Once the future staking landscape is defined, congruent reduction in issuance should be determined under renewed debate. What's really interesting here is Thomas, who is one of the co-executive directors of the Ethereum Foundation, replied to this saying, at the moment, the EF I have been discussing, it says clearer messaging on that changes to issuance are unlikely in the short to medium term horizon. It says inviting major DeFi protocol stakers, restakers, economists to discuss how the issuance policies should be driven, targets and parameters in the future, likely an event at NYC in August. DM me if you are interested in participating. And then EF researchers explore various paths freely and will communicate their ideas via various channels. All of the above has not been finalized yet and will communicate the strategy ASAP. And Billy says maybe should do that sooner than August so that ETH doesn't go to zero. And Thomas says no, August is perfect for this. The ecosystem isn't asking for speed here, but rather communication, participation, and predictability. And Anders says, nice to meet you, Thomas. My second tweet in the thread highlighted changes to issuance policy would have to follow clearer definitions of single slot finality, incentives, and thus and this is, as you state, unlikely in the short term. You can review the write-up on such changes under Orbit SSF in the link, and I'll follow up shortly with the second post for how to do it under a capped validator set, as discussed in the option in the last research call, which is what we covered on Rocket Fuel last week as well. He says, good luck and thanks for the comment. So yeah, there's some interesting discussion going on about issuance reduction and when that might happen, but it looks like it's not going to be happening in the short to medium term, and it looks like the Ethereum Foundation is taking a perspective that any changes and any discussions about changes should be telegraphed way in advance, and people can build their positions accordingly and change things in accordance with that. Okay, next I wanted to talk about the latest episode of Bankless that came out yesterday that had me very excited. And this is with Etherealize, and we had Danny Ryan and Vivek Raman on Bankless talking about Etherealize. It's really interesting because David Hoffman kind of started the episode saying that I still have my doubts, and by the end of it, I think he was convinced by the vision of Vivek, Danny, and the rest of the Etherealize team. It's really, really great episode. I really enjoyed it. It was super bullish for my part, but one of the things that some of the things that were covered was Etherealize's mission, who their clients are and what their finances are, relationship between Ethereum Foundation and Etherealize, where their funding comes from, who's their competition, challenges and roadblocks they have, what success looks like for Etherealize, their co-founders and who the team is, their upcoming ERA, what makes Ethereum special, political effect on Ethereum, community support, layer 1 and Etherealize, hypothetical scenarios with Ethereum, what's next with Etherealize, and some unturned stones, and closing and discussions. So if this is something that you're interested in, definitely give it a listen. I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was fantastic. So it's really worth your time, about an hour, to listen and see what Etherealize are doing, because it's really awesome. Okay, next we had this really interesting post from Tim that caught a lot of attention. So here, Tim was kind of negative about some of the things about Ethereum. So he says, everyone in Ethereum is speaking about serving developers, but the truth is the average developer experience has only gotten worse. And I know that because I've been building in this space since 2015. Maybe go easy on virtue signaling to serving devs. We really don't like it because you don't understand us. So he was talking about funding here, so optimism grants and how they're kind of not helpful. The entire Ethereum and L2 roadmap focusing on servicing very large clients with lots of consumer users. Nobody cares about the developers themselves. Everybody just serves these big clients. So he says, among those people like WorldCoin, stablecoins, and DeFi protocols are being serviced, but not the developers. He says, stated end goal of Ethereum Foundation is not fixed fee accrual and other mechanisms in the short term, and instead that they have to prove that Ethereum scales. For this, they're willingly breaking invariants like history permanence and state permanence. Optimism has also rugged developers in the EIP 4844 update, when suddenly people who were relying on backing up L1 call data now have to run the L2 and the L1 node after the update. There's way more breaking updates as well. It says in 2021, at least developers could have the support of the ecosystem projects that would airdrop them tokens, which made me money on the side that I could spend on building Ethereum tooling. It says this is not the case anymore, and all airdrops go to some third world grifters who are willing to take an entire day out of their week just to understand how they can grift their way to an airdrop inclusion criteria. It says back in the day, you would just have to be a developer working in the ecosystem, but they would adequately reward you with airdrops. He said, like an entire year's salary just for building early Uniswap. I made like an entire year's salary building on early Uniswap, and I'd used this money to build Ethereum tooling and improve user DX. I basically run 0 airdrops in the past 2 to 3 years. This is the Ethereum Foundation. Involved parties are not interested in fixing the Ethereum price in the short term. Often, as a Ethereum developer, I would be able to pay for improving the ecosystem with my bag appreciating, but Ether practically hasn't appreciated, and I would have had to be a very good trader to cash out on some of the local tops along the way in the last few years. And he says, feels like some people in prestigious programs like the OP below are just tweeting something for the likes, and then the organization does the exact opposite of that. In terms of complexity, it's obviously much easier for developers to build on the L1 because you just need to understand Ethereum. With different L2s, now they need intricate knowledge of how everything works. This is, for example, in Petra, there's a change schedule that increases call data cost significantly, and Ethereum researchers are arguing about this does not affect consumers of call data. The reason why this EIP is scheduled in is because of rollups need to be disincentivized from posting into call data, and for that to happen, call data pricing has to be on par with block pricing. How do I know this? I talked to 510 Ethereum researchers in private messages, etc. He says, for years I've been arguing against history expiry and the issues that it brings to Ethereum developers. And he says, I really don't think that Optimism actually doing the exceptionally hard work of fixing the issues. The interoperability solution of the superchain is still not production ready. And then it says, ironically, leaders of the system have said that they were angry at Blizzard for changing its Warlock skill tree in an update that he didn't like. And now the exact same thing is happening to Ethereum. It says, to be honest, as a developer, I don't feel like the star of the show anymore. When Chrome had its peak, Google did everything possible to improve the developer ecosystem. The developer advocates were amazing, and their work with at the W3 made every developer's life much better. He says nowadays I don't feel like that at all. And to be honest, I feel like I don't know, some kind of low-paid plumber. So there were a lot of, Tim had a lot of grievances here, but I think Tim was making the grievances in good faith. So he got some responses in good faith, and we can talk about some of those now. One of the things that I really liked was this comment from Hani Abu. So he was replying to a part from Tim saying, you have to know who to talk to get an answer. There's no good documentation. He says this is really good to point out, and something that I've noticed as well. If you decide today you want to build on Ethereum and aren't already super familiar, where do you start? And then what's really interesting is we actually got a reply from Thomas as well. Let me just, sorry, do I have that open? Let's find out. Yes. Okay. So Thomas says, I read all the posts. I also had a call with Tim earlier this week, sharing the tweet with the Ethereum Foundation leads. I see many good insights here to work on within interoperability, DevX, DevRel, and there's also some price sadness here, and I understand the emotions. Likely the Ethereum Foundation needs to have more focused UX, DevX improvements targeted for grants and coordination. And one of the things that, the Hani Abu comment, I've been saying this for a while. I think it was probably in reply to a Hani Abu comment a while ago, actually, where Hani was talking about how we need some kind of team that people can reach out to when they have an idea for an app or a dApp, and they want to work on Ethereum. What do you go and do, right? What do you do? So this is happening a little bit on base with Jesse, although I have seen some criticisms of that process. I think having someone at the Ethereum Foundation or a team of people at the Ethereum Foundation who are like a welcoming committee, I think would be an absolute huge boost. And all they would do would be field questions or comments or requests for meetings from developers or people who are interested in building on Ethereum, and they could just automate this too, right? They could have a website or whatever, and what that would do is tell you where to go. So do you want to build a DeFi app? Do this. Talk to these people. If you want to make something else, whatever. If you want to start an L2, then do this. And that kind of front landing page of Ethereum, I think would be really, really wonderful to have. And it's something that I think we really need, because other ecosystems do this kind of stuff. If you are on crypto Twitter, you'll see people like Mer and Toli, from Solana, the Solana ecosystem. They will reach out to people, they'll give them time, they get into meetings with them to try to help them, try to woo them over. And that is really impactful, when you come from somewhere like Ethereum where you feel like that doesn't exist. It makes a big difference. What I'm really, really happy about is that fact that Thomas here is, seeing that these grievances are real, acknowledging them, not dismissing them, and trying to share it with the leads at the Ethereum Foundation, and trying to get feedback on what we can do, how we can change things to make them better for people like Tim, and not just for Tim, but other people as well. So I'm very, very interested in to see what happens with this. Okay, so in other news here, we have news from Solid Intel saying the Department of Justice dissolves its crypto unit as President Trump rolls back digital asset regulations. So there's some really interesting stuff here. So Amanda basically saying that this is a major update regarding the Justice Department and prosecution of digital assets. So it said the department will stop participating in regulation by prosecution in this space. So the memo from the Deputy Attorney General does a few important things, including making it clear that the Department of Justice is not going after exchanges and wallets for the actions of third parties, and the Department of Justice is not a regulator of Section 1960 registration violations. So then there's a thread here with some information. What's really interesting here is that, the first instinct people have is that, hey, crime season is back. The government is not going to be prosecuting crypto anymore. But it's slightly more subtle than that. I think it's really interesting. So what they're doing is, in the previous administration, there was a lot of enforcement by regulation by prosecution, where cases and lawsuits and stuff were brought up against crypto companies, and that was in lieu of good regulation at the federal level or whatever, at the legal level. And I think what's happening now is that, the current administration wants to move away from that. And I think that's really interesting. So this doesn't mean that if you commit crypto fraud, like no one's going to come after you. That's not what this is. This is just like not going after exchanges, wallets, etc. What's really interesting here is that it says you're not going to come after you for the actions of third parties. So there's some stuff about Tornado Cash that could come out of this, where it could be that, if you make a neutral piece of software, which is what Tornado Cash is, and then people use that for criminal purposes, the Department of Justice might not come after you now because of that. So that is actually a really, really interesting development. I'm still trying to figure out the full legal ramifications of that. Critics obviously will point at this and say that this is, basically being lenient on crypto because of campaign donations. So Molly White here, who's an outspoken crypto critic, says Trump has directed the Department of Justice to stop pursuing crypto fraud, dismantling the National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team, and ordering the Market Integrity and Major Frauds Units to cease cryptocurrency enforcement. So, we need to figure out the details of that. Here, Amanda replies saying this is incorrect and factually inaccurate. The memo says the DOJ will prioritize prosecuting fraud, not stop pursuing it. They will stop pursuing registration violations. And then it's saying that Washington Post corrected the headline. So that was definitely interesting that, this idea kind of goes out. I think people wrongly are saying that, this is one way when it's actually another way. And one of the things that's really interesting is that this admin has actually objectively been really good for crypto in a lot of ways. A lot of things that people wanted from this admin for crypto, it seems to be giving them. The problem is that there's all this other stuff that has come along with it. And that is the stuff that has made people not happy. So yeah, it was like that monkey's paw thing, right? I wish for crypto-friendly system in government, parties in government who are crypto-friendly, and then the monkey paw, gives the wish. But on the other hand, it's like bringing down the world order and leading to ruination for people. So, yay, good times. Okay, I'm going to end today's episode with a raffle, and you might see that Halululo is here with information. You might be wondering, what's Halululo doing here? Well, to go back in the beginning of April, I reached out to Cheers and I said, hey, do you have the raffle info? So for those of you who've been following along, Cheers is the person who would tabulate all the raffle information, and Cheers didn't reply. And then a few days later, I asked again. I said, hey, guys, Cheers hasn't been around in a while, so I can't get the raffle info. Can anybody help me out? I said, you'll get $100 prize for it. So basically what would happen is every month Cheers would go through the submissions page and find out who got how many tickets, and then tabulate all of that and present me the information, which I then used as the raffle. Well, Halululo stepped in and he says, is it just counting submissions with a react per user in a month? I said, yep, from me. And Halululo said, if I could write a rocket scrape class for it, can I just get $100 every month? And I said, yeah, I gave that to Cheers, I can give it to you. He says, I can do that then, that's easy money. But then I said, no more raffle prizes. So then there was a little bit of back and forth. So then I said, all I want is the name of the person and how many times I put the whack emoji on their name in the submissions in a given month. I said, but you got to track it for people changing their usernames, etc., to cover submissions from duplicates and stuff. So he says that Rocket script tags by user ID anyway, so that's cool. And then he shared a little while later, 15 minutes later, he says this is the entire code. So it's basically finding out the messages with my emojis attached to it and basically making a table of that. So whenever he runs that information, so this is from March 1st to April 1st, midnight April 1st, and it put out 18 names of tickets. So this is actually really cool. So yeah, this is the information that he got pulled out, and now I can just put that into the raffle. So I'll just post it here, and then I press go, and let's see what happens. Oh, invalid formatting. Oh, because it's got the numbers next to the names. I think that might be it. Okay, let me pause this and figure this out. Okay, so I removed the things. Let's see if it works now. No, it says invalid formatting. So I think that's because of this. Let me try playing around with it again. Okay, so I removed that. Let's see if that works. Nope, it still says invalidating formatting for this line. Sum is 13. Oh, it might need to be in a table. Hold on, let me try playing around with it. Okay, so now I made it into a table. So let me just go and remove the information that I pasted here. And I'm going to instead get this. So I didn't clean it up too much. I'll do that next time. Okay, so I finally got the Raffle stuff fixed, but there was a problem in the way that I was recording. So they just got cut off where there was a bit of a jump just then when if you were watching, and the Raffle did go through, but it didn't get recorded. So the winners were Samus, Schifrin, it skipped me, then Suna, Mig, and we have Chris Rock, Halulu gets skipped, Sneaky Ninja Guy, S. Jaws, and Kevster. So those are all the winners. I'm so sorry about that. I don't know what actually happened with the recording there. You have to trust me that it all worked out. I hope that's okay. Anyway, thank you all for watching, listening, and being part of the Rocket Fuel community. I hope you all have a lovely day ahead, as much as you can with this markets doing what they are. And I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.